The source of wisdom. From the past to the present, humans have been the most knowledgeable and wise beings on Earth. Although humans do not have strong claws or teeth like lions, with wisdom, they can capture a lion. Likewise, while humans cannot run as fast as leopards, they have used their wisdom to make it possible to travel around the world in a day. Human wisdom allows us to observe and classify things, to think logically and reason, and to use imagination to see what is invisible, and make what was once thought impossible, possible. With this wisdom, humanity has explored mountains and seas, and is now even expanding into space, utilizing all their wisdom to understand the origins and processes of creation. However, there are many realms that cannot be understood or measured by human wisdom. No matter how much wisdom one may have, the spiritual and faith-based worlds created by God cannot be fully grasped. In truth, we cannot even discern whether the remarkable wisdom and knowledge of humanity are discoveries made by humans themselves, or insights that God has granted to them. In other words, we cannot definitively say whether the ability to expand and develop our wisdom is something given by God or something we have developed on our own. Believers, of course, will attribute it all to God's grace, while unbelievers will credit human effort and hard work. From the time humans first began to multiply on Earth until today, human wisdom has continuously developed and accumulated. It is also true that this wisdom has made modern life more comfortable and abundant. As a result, worldly wisdom and common knowledge have entered the church without much filtering and are accepted as natural and normal. Worldly wisdom argues that everything in the world exists for humanity and should be used for humanity. However, as this worldly wisdom infiltrates the faith, it leads to the dangerous notion that even God exists for humans, and that all aspects of the life of faith are human-centered rather than God-centered. Even though our attendance at church and our spiritual lives are meant to foster a spiritual relationship and fellowship with God, we often seek this path through human wisdom and methods. This is the outcome when worldly wisdom enters into faith. While worldly wisdom advocates for a faith that serves humans, God's wisdom speaks of the purpose and essence of human life through a relationship with God. God's wisdom is not something that can be attained through human reasoning or science. It can only be received when God grants it to us from above. Only those who receive this perfect wisdom from God can live without elevating themselves and instead glorify God, spreading His grace to others. Without the wisdom that comes from God, we cannot seek, find, or live according to His will. Only the wisdom from above can transform our character, change our hearts, and enable us to reflect the true light and fragrance of Christ. To receive such wisdom from God, we must first lay down the wisdom we have gained from the world. We must also abandon the heart and habits that rely on that worldly wisdom. If we do not do this, when crises or problems arise in our lives, we will turn to human wisdom rather than depending on God. This is what Jesus referred to as the path of self-denial, and with self-denial comes suffering, much like the pain of the cross. It's not easy to abandon the familiar ways of worldly wisdom and suddenly follow what seems foolish and irrational, the ways of God. This is why Jesus said that denying oneself is like carrying one's cross. But when we deny ourselves and live according to God's wisdom and ways, that is when God's wisdom will truly take root in our minds and hearts. As individuals become filled with God's wisdom, the church will be properly established. The church will no longer be filled with worldly wisdom, but will be overflowing with God's wisdom and grace. Only then will we be qualified to fulfill the role of light and salt, as Jesus commanded. Therefore, follow not worldly wisdom, but God's wisdom. I hope that you will be transformed into holiness by the wisdom that comes from God.
구독, 좋아요, 알림 설정 해주세요. Subscribe. like set notifications,